Hello, everyone, and inside the latest Locked On Canadiens, we're grading the 2024 NHL Draft Class.
You're Locked On Canadiens, your daily podcast on the Montreal Canadiens, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 1102. I'm going to call it 1102 because that is much, much easier to say, of Locked On Canadiens. We are your daily Montreal Canadiens podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where you get your team every single day of the week. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. And remember to make every moment more, because as the playoffs wind down, the sports stop sportsing like we want them to. But this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. Something for everyone, every day, all summer long. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started today. I am your host. I am Scott Matla. I am running this solo today. My co-host is a little under the weather, so she's getting the day to rest before free agency, where we will be very busy once again here at Locked On Canadiens. So stay tuned for that. And I got to say, it has now been about 48 hours and the dust has settled on the first round of the NHL draft, and it has definitely settled, and the second through seventh rounds have kind of stuck and waited a little bit here. And I gotta say, this is probably exactly what the Canadiens needed in terms of this NHL draft here. And I'm just pulling up the draft class behind me, and I gotta say, pretty good. And I guess we should start right at the top here, because let's be honest, the Montreal Canadiens, the first thing they did is they stepped up and they hit one out of the park. Fifth overall, Ivan Demidov of SKA St. Petersburg in the MHL, not the SHL. Sorry, Patrick. Someone who many refer to as the second most skilled player, or arguably the most skilled player in this draft, but definitely the second best player in this draft. Why he slipped, I don't know. Chicago taking Artem Lobshunov makes sense. Anaheim going for Beckett Seneca really did not make sense to me. And I really should send Pat Verbeek a basket of cheese and fruit and wine and everything as a thank you for doing that, because it made this possible here. The Canadiens were honed in on Demidov, apparently, and it was an open secret in the NHL. Teams are trying to trade up to get into that pick. They want this player, and the Canadiens almost pulled the trigger on either what I assume is a McGroarty or a Natchez trade, as those teams were interested, apparently, in moving up into that top five there. But once Seneca went, I think, and Lindstrom went, the Canadiens are like, nope, we're done. We're getting our guy here. We're going to have experts on to talk about Ivan Demidov. I don't know how much more I can tell you that isn't, this kid's really good. I'm watching his highlight reels and I'm writing the getting to know articles and stuff, Rise on the Prize. And I'm watching him do things that I don't think I've ever seen a Canadiens prospect do before. And I mean that in a respectful way, that Cole Caulfield scored a lot of really good goals. Nick Suzuki did a lot of really cool things in the OHL. What I have seen from Ivan Demidov is he is going to be the most skilled prospect this team has had in a very long time. They've had good prospects and they've had very good prospects. This guy is in a different tier of his own. For Kent Hughes and the Montreal Canadiens, this is an A+ pick. I don't think anyone would disagree. This is exactly what this team needed. They needed, in this prospect pool, to hit that next level. They needed a superstar potential player. They got Ivan Demidov, who, stepped in at just over 6 feet tall at the Gold Star camp. Watching the stuff that he could do was incredible. I am sad that he won't be here for rookie camp. He's not going to be here for development camp. He has 1 year left on his AHL contract. So that means Canadiens fans have already started that clock timer. His contract with SKA runs out at the end of this season. And then you are going to have every Habs fan watching the KHL rooting against SKA. They're going to hope Demidov scores 5 goals a game, but they lose every single time. The sooner their season is over, the sooner their new superstar gets here. And honestly, it's really hard for me to argue with that. Let's be honest here. I cannot wait for the day that he shows up. Truly, he is going to be, I think, the most hyped prospect arrival, and probably more so than Lane Hudson, probably more so than Caulfield. I think he's going to be one of the most hyped prospect, debuts for the Montreal Canadiens in the immediate future. They weren't done in the first round, though. So the Canadiens traded their 26th overall pick and I believe it was 57th overall pick in the second round to move up 5 spots to 21st overall, where the LA Kings were currently, they swapped those picks. So they took LA's 21st overall pick. And Kent Hughes said that we had this player in mind the entire time, that if he were gone, we would have traded the pick in something. What that package would have been and who it would have been for, could not tell you. They might have traded into the second round and drafted a bunch of guys there, which would have been fine with me based on some of the talent that was there. With their 21st overall pick, they picked forward Michael Hage of the Chicago Steelers, heading to the University of Michigan. For everyone who followed our mock draft, you know that I liked this player immediately. Just looking at his skill set, looking at his full character, and more on that in a second here. A lot of things stood out that he is a guy who the Canadiens identified as a leader and a skilled one at that. He's someone, he lost his father less than a year ago in a tragic accident, grew up a Canadiens fan in the heart of Toronto with his parents, mentioned it was 3-1 at his press conference, talked about Carey Price and feeling sad that he got hurt and everything else. Michael Hage is another high ceiling player. His floor is quite good. That he's a center now. Some people think he might stick as a winger at the next level. We'll see. But his skating is incredible, that he does good things with this. He's a very high skill player. And that's the kind of thing you want the Canadiens to go after, especially in the first round, is players with skill. Hage is a dynamic rush attacker combining inside drives, flashy dekes, give and go playmaking, crossover burst, gets defenders' feet moving. Then he looks for vulnerabilities, fakes wide, cuts in, accelerates to the net. All of those things are music to my ears. This is a guy who wants to get to the net. Ivan Demidov, to a fault almost, hogs the puck, but he gets it to the net because he does great things when he has it, because he's 2 steps ahead. Hage seems to be coming in that same spot there, that he is aggressive, that he wants to score. He wants to be going to the net. He wants to put the puck there. These guys have star potential, I think. And I know that it is very, very early to jump on I think he's going to be this, I think he's going to be this. Ivan Demidov, for me, is very easily a top 6 winger that you can pencil in as soon as he is ready to make the jump over here. Michael Hage is going to take a little bit more time because he is in the USHL. It says University of Michigan starting in 2025. I'm not 100% sure if that's going to be the full case or not, or if he jumps up this year, since Michigan has lost several players in the past year to NHL contracts. Guys like Gavin Brindley, not Rucker McGroarty, because the Winnipeg Jets apparently hate him. We'll see what goes on with that, because if McGroarty leaves, there's a very good chance they may say, hey, you can start sooner if you want. Hage just turned 18 back in April. This, for me, is another A pick. There were a lot of good pieces available at 21. This is one that I identified and really liked. I think this is an absolute A pick here. This is a player that the Canadiens had their eye on. Kent Hughes said, this is the last guy on our list that we had at 21st overall. We moved up specifically for this player. That speaks volumes. The Canadiens are not usually one to share things that openly, but they saw something in Michael Hage that they really, really like. I really, really like this player. I'm excited to see him at camp, assuming he had some lingering shoulder injuries at the start of last year, but when he got healthy, 33 goals, 42 assists in 54 games. One of the hottest players down the stretch for Chicago on a team that's usually pretty loaded with talent. One of the best teams in the USHL. I got to say, it's a good time to be a Canadiens fan. If they ended the draft after the first round, I don't think Habs fans would have been upset. Well, maybe a little bit based on who went in their next pick. But we're going to jump into the remaining picks in this draft. We're going to get into the third and fourth rounds coming up next. But as I said off the top of the show, today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. And I love sports, and I love them so much that I never want them to stop. But the playoffs for the NHL and the NBA are over. Major League Baseball's in full swing, however. And we got fewer games overall, though. And the sports aren't sporting like I want them to. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open up the app and dream up any bets anytime I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers, not some, all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day all summer long. So head over to fanduel.com/lockedon and start making the most out of your summer. You've got the Copa, you've got Euros, you've got Major League Baseball. The NFL season is right around the corner. FanDuel is the official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball and us here at Locked On. We are back here at Locked On Canadiens. I am your host. I am Scott Matla, of course. The first round is an A+A and A pick in Ivan Demidov and Michael Hage. Once you get outside the first two rounds, unless you have players who are falling, guys like Justin Poirier, Aron Hage, who fell into the fourth round, etc., it's hard to sometimes get maybe the talent you want, but you take swings at certain pieces here. And I'm going to try and put the third and fourth rounds together here and then put the fifth through seventh rounds together in our last segment. And at 70th overall, the Canadiens went out and Kent Hughes like, I'm gonna endear myself forever to this fan base. After crushing the first round, having no picks in the second round, which is tough, with their first pick of the third round, the Montreal Canadiens selected Koivu, son of former captain and fan favorite legend Saku Koivu. The story of this is very good, is that his mother is the one who heard the pick, not himself or his dad when they found out. It's a really, really fun pick. It's going to get an A++ just for the sentimentality behind it. And it gets a solid B+ for me for overall, like, putting on my analytic brain for this. Was Koivu probably the best player available at 70th overall? No. But here is the thing. This is a player that has a strong skill set they can build off of. He's a player who went from, kind of middling once he grew into his body a little bit, started advancing to that next level, got a cup of coffee with TPS Turku at the top level of Liga for a handful of games, played pretty well for their under 18 and under 20 teams, over a point per game for both, just shy of a point per game in the playoffs, no less, too. This is a player they can work with, who's got very good skating, has the responsible parts of his game. Looking at Mitch Brown's tracking project, Koivu has some pretty good defensive metrics to look at to build on. And coaches love that. If you have a guy who can take care of business in the defensive zone and advance the play and score at the other end eventually, that's someone you can work with. And yeah, like I said, they could have picked this guy. They could have done this. They could have done this. That's all well and good for Kent Hughes to understand the magnitude of this moment and still get a player that I think has talent to work with here. There are other players I might have picked, but I don't think Koivu maybe would have been there at 78, or they had identified somebody else there. This is, I think, just a huge moment for the Canadiens and their fan base. This is a solid B+ for me on my actual draft scale, but it's an A quadruple plus for just the sentimentality around it. He also will not be at development camp, I believe, is what was heard. Maybe rookie camp, but also the Liga season will be starting around that time. So they may say, just stay, take care of your business there, which is completely fair. I am curious now if we start to see Saku folded into the Canadiens organization in one way or another now. He's kind of been doing his own thing. I believe he's on the board at TPS Turku. Someone can correct me on what his actual title is, but I got to say, I have all the time in the world for this. A player I liked skill-wise, and now, like I said, it's Saku's son in Montreal. Start printing those Koivu 11 jerseys again and just print money. And then moving on, at 78th overall, the first name this year that I really didn't know a whole lot about, but thanks to Chris Peters and the folks at Elite Prospects, I feel a little bit better. At 78th overall, from the BCHL, formerly AJHL, like I've said in our live stream, weird political stuff going on there. 6'1", 175-pound winger, Logan Sawyer, built on work ethic and motor, played over point per game last year in his entire season. In 59 games, he had 78 points, put up 15 points in 12 playoff games. We'll have another year in the BCHL with Brooks, and then we'll head to Providence in 2025, 2026. If you were noticing a trend here, none of the Canadiens' first 4 picks are from the CHL, giving them a much longer timeline to allow these players to develop and work before having to sign them. They don't have to rush into, you've got 2 years after this selection to sign this CHL player, etc. They've given themselves a long runway for all of these players. Demidov is probably a foregone conclusion. Hage will go the USHL to the NCAA where he has a couple of years. You're going to have Atos Koivu, who's in Europe, and then will come over when, that time is ready. There's a longer window on that. And now Logan Sawyer is going to be in the BCHL and then is going to head to the NCAA, giving you up to, I believe that will be a 5-year window, potentially 5 to 6 year window there. That's fantastic. And that allows you to make a decision before, when you are ready to. You're not feeling rushed into it. For me, again, there's a lot of players I might have potentially picked instead here. And I'm just going to kind of scroll down here. As I'm looking here, Logan Sawyer went at 78th. A guy like Carson Wetch potentially. Maybe not as many. I did really, really want Adam Jecko was another pretty good forward in there. A player like a Luke Miza, who went way, way later in this draft for whatever reason. But I'm okay with this. I like a guy who has work ethic and motor and seems to just put the puck in the net pretty regularly and sets up his teammates pretty regularly. I don't watch a ton of the BCHL, and I know it's maybe not the highest skilled league or the highest competition league. I shouldn't say skilled. There are very good players that play in the BCHL, and I should not be unfair to them in that. This gets a B from me. At this point in the draft, you are swinging on guys that you can build on, basically. This isn't quite drafting Florian Jacki, who has turned out well. Maybe that unicorn comment was not totally off base, but I think for me, this gets a B. This is someone I'm excited to watch more of because work ethic and motor are guys that help you get through tough games. When you have a tired defense out there, you throw that guy out there who can work hard, is constantly on. Defenses don't want to play against that guy. It's a nightmare. And shifting into the 4th round, the first CHL player picked by the Montreal Canadiens, Owen Protz of the Brantford Bulldogs, previously of the Sudbury Wolves. And this has my favorite phrase. We talked about this in live stream: smart violence. He angles opponents into the boards. He lines them up. He is not flying around trying to just make hits. Hits come to him is the way that it seems. He eliminates the attacker's options on the cycle, slams them to the ice. He'll shut down rushes, move the puck, and activate in the offensive zone. This is another player, it seems like, is a strong base to build on. Looking at Mitch Brown's tweets about this is a guy who has the earmarks of being probably pretty easily a 5'6" defenseman in the NHL. And you go, well, that's terrible. Why are we not drafting a first pairing defenseman? And the first thing is because it's the 4th round at 102nd overall. And that, yes, you will find players who blossom into first line players down there. Rarely. If you're getting a guaranteed NHL player out of your 4th round pick, you're doing pretty well for yourself. And he has good mobility, good defensive metrics. He's a real nasty piece of work that isn't quite Arbor Jacki, where they're a little bit more chaotic, and a little more Radko Gudas, where by the end of the game, you're tired of this. You don't want to do this anymore. You're coming across the line, and who's there? It's Owen Protz, and he's angry, and he's going to hit you. You dump the puck in instead. He's the kind of player that maybe they force changes in. His elite prospect stats apparently were not right. Reading some of our comments at Eyes on the Prize, he apparently is 6'2" now. So he's got some size to him to go along with that really nasty style of defense. And everyone loves a good heavy hitter. I'm going to give this pick a solid B, a B for myself here. I think that there's a lot of potential to build on with a guy like Owen Protz. I know people are going to love this, and he's close by. Brantford isn't all that far from where I'm currently living, so maybe I will catch some Bulldogs games and report back. We're down to the final rounds here, though, folks. We're going to go rounds 5 through 7 here, talk about the final few picks, give out some grades, and wrap up the show coming up next. We are back here at Locked On Canadiens, and we're jumping into rounds 5 through 7 and grading the NHL draft. We've got an A+ for Demidov. We got an A for Hage. We've got an A+++ for sentimentality for Atos Koivu. A B for, maybe the logistics around that. Logan Sawyer gets a B- for myself. Owen Protz gets a B. We were into round 5 and starting with the only other player drafted from the CHL for the Montreal Canadiens here from the WHL, 6'4" winger Tyler Thorpe. And he's big. He's very, very big. But the thing is that he's not big for nothing, which is a huge, huge bonus for the Canadiens. I'm going to read the quote from the Elite Prospects Guide. It's uncommon to see a player of Thorpe's stature shoot in motion and off the catch with such impressive form. His hands always stay in front of the body, and he really elevates his top arm and put full body weight behind the net. I assume that means shot. He also has a knack for deflections, bolstered by between checks positioning. This is a guy who knows how to leverage his size to work for him. Maybe not the most elite skater in the world, but you can fix that. 44 points in 51 games for the Vancouver Giants this year. Only 30 penalty minutes, so he's not just taking penalties too. And this wasn't exactly a Vancouver team stacked with talent. Their leading scorer had 66 points in Jaden Lipinski, who I believe is a little bit older. He's 19 years old. He'll be 20 in December. This is a team that Tyler Thorpe is going to be a big piece of next year. He's big. He's got some skills to him, which I think is the most important thing there. I'm very intrigued to see what he does in development camp, because a guy that size, that young, usually looks a little bit awkward. Michael McCarron did a little bit. If they can develop Thorpe into, let's say, what Justin Brazeau is maybe a little bit, I think that he is a potentially really good option. I'm going to give that pick a B. Like I said, there are guys like Luke Miza and stuff around that I maybe would have liked and preferred, but I kind of get what they were doing here with that. This is the only pick of the draft coming up that I didn't really like all that much. Not Tyler Thorpe. 131st, 4th overall, Mikas Vekvanags of HS Riga in the Latvian league. This is a guy who's played in Latvian under 17 leagues, in under 16 Division 1 teams in Sweden, back to the Latvian under 16 international team, to the under 18 and under 20 teams back in Sweden, to back to playing in Latvia 2, the under 18 Mestis, the under 18 SM Saraja in Latvia, the main Latvian league, and the under 18 championships for Latvia. I generally don't love the idea of picking a goalie, especially not one of the ranked goalies that were on there. And as I'm kind of going through here, I'm looking. So they picked the goaltender here. There's a guy like Owen Allard who is right there. There was Sebastian Sony, John Whipple, William McIsaac, etc. There were good players. Justin Poirier went at 156th overall. And I think that's the one that's going to kind of stick in my craw a little bit here. I knew the Canadiens were going to pick a goalie, but I assumed it would be after they were really done swinging for high skill players. This one for me is going to get a C-. He's apparently coming over to play in the QMJHL next year, where they'll get a better look at him. At least that was the rumor, because playing in the Latvian league isn't exactly known as a developmental hotbed for players. I will reserve more judgment until I ask a goaltending expert about him. There's a chance that people didn't get enough looks at him, because how often are you going to watch the Latvian junior leagues? This is more of a, I don't know much about them otherwise, and I apologize for the content on this show because of that, but I don't have much that I can really say about that for you. 6th round, 166th overall, coming from the Massachusetts high school system, St. Sebastian School, where both of Kent Hughes' kids went. So this is someone he very likely knows. 6'4", 194-pound winger or center, Ben Merrill. He can rip the puck. That is the from the Elite Prospects Guide, can rip the puck, but he isn't just a big dude who can hit it hard because he's young and large. He uses shoulder shimmies, look-offs, and he uses different routes to attack, which shows he's got smarts up here. We talked about Tyler Thorpe being a guy that uses his size to his advantage smartly. This absolutely reeks of that same thing. Skating, not quite there yet, but you can always fix skating. He put up 35 points in 25 games for St. Sebastian's this year. Going to the BCHL next year. He's going to Penticton to play with the Vs, which is a huge step up in competition. He's going to have to get from the high school system to the BCHL. He's going to have to get that skating worked on, which, guess what? That's what the Montreal Canadiens development staff is for. And then he's going to Harvard in 2025. This is not a dumb kid, mind you. And I know that there are different entrance requirements for athletes and regular students and everything, but this is a guy who apparently knows how to use his size and wants to use it more effectively. If they can dial in that skating and make him a little bit more mobile, because many things list him as one of the worst skaters in the draft, you can do a lot with that. A guy who's 6'4", who wants to, again, shimmy and look off and use misdirection, perfectly fine with me. It's a B- pick. Again, there were good pieces I would have liked here. Luke Misa and Justin Poirier had gone just before that. Tomasz Galvish was in here. But again, I can't be too upset about this. You're in the 6th round at this point. You know, this is, you are swinging at whatever sounds good. The last 2 picks in the draft, round 7, 210 overall, 6-foot winger, 161 pounds, Makar Kanan from Dynamo St. Petersburg in the VHL. So he's playing in their second league, which I believe is the equivalent of their AHL. Their MHL is their junior league, where Ivan Demidov is. He put up just under a point per game for Dynamo St. Petersburg in the VHL, which is a professional men's league, and was over a point per game in just the 7 games that he played in the MHL last year. He's scheduled to play in the VHL this year. This was not a player that was in any of the guides. That I unfortunately don't have too much to give you on that. But I look at the goal scoring numbers and I look at the production at every single level, and I go, yeah, I'm okay with this. This is swinging for. This is probably a guy they watched a lot between going to see Yevgeny Volokin, seeing Bogdan Konyushkov, scouting Demidov potentially as well, that this guy might have caught their eye in one of those games, and that's why they went for it. He's 19 years old. He just turned 19 on St. Patrick's Day in March. Unsure of contract status. Could not tell you otherwise right now, but it's a bet on upside, scoring upside. And with the last pick of the draft, the second to last pick of the overall draft, round 7, 224th overall, 6'2", 181-pound defenseman from Haleftia, Rasmus Bergquist. And I, again, am not going to pretend to know much of anything about this player. Was not in any of my guides. Put up 12 points in 36 games for Haleftia's under-20 team after he put up 10 and 31 the year before. Graduated pretty quickly from the under-18 program. Played in 9 playoff games for Haleftia. 1 goal, 2 assists, 3 points. 4 penalty minutes plus 7. I know Patrick Bexell has very good relationships with a lot of the coaches over in Sweden. He's going to be your man for Rasmus Bergquist here. And I'm very excited. He gets to cover Atos Koivu as well. Like, a tremendous honor for that. Once I have more on that, it's the last pick of the draft. You could grade this whatever you want. Maybe he's a star. Maybe he's not. It's literally the second to last pick of the draft. I'll give it a C. Because there's so little information available about these players, it's hard to say what's going on with them. The good news is you're not going to have to wait long to see a lot of these players potentially in action, as development camp is starting very, very soon. I believe it's starting this upcoming week. And we have free agency coming up. So we will be talking free agency tomorrow night. Laura or myself will try to be around if there are big signings or trades or anything to hit you with some shorts and clips here on YouTube. So make sure follow us on Twitter at LO_Canadian, LockedOnCanadians@gmail.com. Send us your draft grades. We want to know about your draft grades. Overall, this is an A draft from me to the Montreal Canadiens. An absolute fantastic job. Send us your grades because we want to know as well. Folks, thank you so much for tuning in, and we will see you all next time.